All right. So,
Yeah, very warm welcome. It's Andy again. It's Tim. Sorry to the listeners that tried listening to the live stream. Just a few technicals, but we'll get there one day, very soon. I think if you don't pay for a service, Tim, you always have a problem. But when you pay, it always goes, smoothly. I mean, I take my hat off to Zoom for being always on our side.
hmm yeah, Zoom is great. All right.
We
So,
can zoom along and no one's going to bother us.
mhm. All right. Well, Andy, Anthony Fauci and the head of the CDC, Walensky, have been found, or at least they're being accused of criminal negligence. The standard of evidence for prosecuting the NIAID and CDC directors for criminal negligence has been met. So they're in um, big doo doo, my friend.
Yeah, I've not read that story, but I've seen it floating around, and I'm thinking straight away, if they're criminally um, if they pass that threshold, what would then happen to all the other doctors in the world that either believed him or believed what was going on at the time? Could the whole universe, medical profession, be all criminal? And then the next question is, if that's the case, who started this and who was the benefit?
Well, I think there's a RICO case here showing racketeering on a huge international scale, such as we've never seen in the history of the world. Um, and they were all following a script. There's no doubt about it. Build back better. All these slogans that were being bandied about at every level of the pandemic response. You know, um, Social distancing being the constant mantra, and uh, believe the science, whatever, regardless of whether it was a national leader, provincial, or municipal leader. Everyone was following the same script, everyone was using the same slogans. To me, it's pretty obvious it was a coordinated effort and pretty seamless as far as a criminal conspiracy is concerned. It was very well orchestrated. The enforcement of lockdowns, the insistence on mask wearing to enter any facility, any kind of building, always wearing this bloody mask. Um, and well, frankly, Andy, I don't believe it's that the disease or the so called pandemic was caused by a dangerously transmissible pathogen. I believe they seeded this damn thing through these so called vaccines that they keep insisting on the public getting. I mean, the germ theory is the popular view, and most people believe it. And in fact, I was on the bus yesterday and someone complained that someone coughed without covering their mouth. Um, so everyone is completely convinced that they're going to be catching this dangerous pathogen, whatever the hell it is, through some kind of germ theory based infection. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, sorry, I'd muted it for a minute. Yeah, Well, the bit that makes me laugh is, let's say teacher got up on the stage and said, "Look, everybody, you know, do this," and they all ran out the room and did that, and they were told to go home and tell your parents to do the same, and then you pass that on to your cousins, your uncles, your aunties. I mean, basically, why should we always do what people tell us, even if it is in the event of a medical emergency? I mean, why
It's
can't they
it's
convince us first? And I'll give you an example what I'm referring to. Why can't they give us a good example with proper evidence from proper specialists before they tell us to jump off that bridge, before we have to believe them? Now, the example is recently our UK government, I know it's not health related, not directly anyway. We had some wildfires in Wales and I think certain parts of England, maybe Worcestershire, and they sent out 2 or 3 million text messages saying, avoid the area, avoid anywhere where there's grass, don't light your matches, don't put your mobile phone on near dry. Basically, it's the same thing. They're trying to tell you to not do something when there's no evidence of what you're doing is bad anyway. So that's my little rant.
yeah, it's very, very concerning that we have all these wildfires across the whole expanse of Canada. I mean, that's a huge territory. You know how big this place is? And then there's wildfires in the UK too. Sorry, I don't believe they're wildfires. I believe they're being deliberately set. And I think that um, I have two people, George Freund and Nick Beluskas, who agree with that belief. And Nick Beluskas says, "Look, the fires are set in, or the fires are occurring in a locale where there's just too many fires in one concentrated zone or one concentrated area. Wildfires are wild. They don't pop up in one concentrated area like this. It is too coordinated and it's too coincidental that the fires are all in these particular locales. Um, and the fact that we're getting wildfires and you are getting them over there and also in France all at the same time. And are they going to blame climate change, global warming? Obviously, they always do. And what will be the lockdown consequences? Sorry, you're not allowed into any of the national parks. You have to stay out of these areas. They're designated for safety control purposes to be off limits. So stay out of all of the parklands, stay out of the national parks. And what is the UN going to do? They're going to seize all these lands, and who's going to know the difference when they're not even allowed to visit them anymore? The citizens are barred from entering these zones because of the danger of wildfires. The public is not starting these fires. I don't, whoever the malicious intent individuals are that are behind the setting of the wildfires, and I think they're probably working for our governments. They're not ordinary citizens that are setting these fires. And even accidentally, we don't happen to pose much of a threat to the wilderness. Camping practices are pretty responsible as far as I've seen with most campers and people that are enjoying nature because they want to continue to enjoy nature. They don't want to sabotage their own good time and their enjoyment of the wild.
Well, just on that wildfire thing, they've recently, in the last couple of hours, for the Wales area anyway, they're either blaming or they are looking at 4 youths that were seen, near the place that was set fire. But what will make you even laugh more, the Cairngorms in Scotland now. The Cairngorms, obviously, it's mainly mountain. It's mainly the lowest temperatures ever, even in the summer. And the Cairngorms near Aviemore, Scotland, had wildfires that were out of control. Now, there's no way in the world is that real. I mean, that's what people who don't even talk the conspiracy stuff or the factual stuff or the maybe the conspiracy itself. They're like normal people are saying that couldn't have been set deliberately and that isn't real. So, like you said, there's wildfires popping up, and if they were that bad, it would affect many counties or many other areas in the one go rather than just the one. It's isolated into a central point. So, yeah, definitely.
So, unfortunately, we live in times where um, you remember the Pink Floyd song "Off the Dark Side of the Moon" album, "Us and Them,"
Us and them, yeah.
and
Ah,
of course,
that's
and
that
of,
record last time that I was saying about they mentioned Maggie Thatcher. I'm sure it's that record now. Anyway, yeah, us and them. But that's a good example, really.
yeah, I mean, who is us and who is them in your view?
Well, obviously, in my view personally, it's the people that care. It's the obviously the politician or the academics that don't care, and it's people in between. But it's mainly the little people that care about the rest of the world, and it's the academias and the politicians that don't care. That's us and them, I think.
So the establishment is them, and they are the ones that do not appear to care for the people that they're assigned to or supposed to care for and care about. Well, I think the evidence will show over the last 50 years that our political elite do not give a shit about us. I don't think they do. I think the evidence shows they don't care. The policies they invoke are anti human, anti people, anti procreation, anti family, anti civilization, for Christ's sake. Anti Christ? Yeah, God damn it. Surely to hell, it's goddamn Antichrist. An Antichrist team working against the people. I think it's bloody obvious. Don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the words to us and them, and after all, we're only ordinary men, me and you. God only knows it's not what we would choose to do, and there's loads of very similar sort of relevant. I mean, they're gonna kill you. So, like, if you give them a quick short, sharp shock, it says they don't do it again. Dig it. I mean, he got off light because I couldn't give him a thrashing. Only hit him once. It's only a difference in right and wrong, isn't it? I mean, good manners don't cost nothing, do they? Yeah, this is about us and them, our life. I think definitely.
Yeah.
But you're right, and same going back to Fauci. Why would people believe all this shit? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Fauci kept saying, trust the science. And yet there was no legitimacy to any of the science he was asking us to trust. I mean, the mask, I'm sorry, what a waste of time. The mask, if there was a virus this microscopic and endangering the public, I recall there was a time where he actually advocated double masking this Fauci character. I mean,
God,
come on.
bad enough having one mask. Straight away, he's killing every asthmatic person or anybody with a breathing problem. You know, they'd be better off taking their chances, I believe, um, inhaling that virus than actually not being able to breathe properly.
Have you heard of asbestosis?
Yeah, because my sister's husband died of it. Now, all he ever did was he was a bricklayer. He worked on buildings.
Mm-hmm.
He never really ever went into any enclosed space. But when he
Mm-hmm.
died, um,
Mm-hmm.
the post-mortem, I don't know why there was a post-mortem, but they said he died of asbestosis. But because and there's a compensation scheme, they can give money, but they didn't give my sister any money because he was a very light smoker. He always had one cigarette or two cigarettes a day, and they believe it was the cigarettes, not the asbestosis, that killed him. Yes, that's another story they didn't know.
Okay, well, anyway, um, uh, uh, purportedly there's asbestos insulation in some buildings, and they have believed over the years that it's responsible for causing a form of lung disease that's caused by what is called asbestosis. Well, if you're wearing these masks, which over the course of many days would cause you to inhale a lot of fiber related dust from the mask itself, I think years from now, there's going to be a pandemic of lung cancer related to the fibers from the masks embedding themselves in the alveoli of the lungs and causing cancerous tumors to form in the lungs that lead to something akin to asbestosis, very similar to asbestosis. I wouldn't even put it past him to put asbestos dust in the masks and have people inhale the asbestos in the mask. Would you put it past them? I wouldn't.
No, absolutely. But I think the most likely cause of that is how cheap they made these masks and where they actually come from. You know, because I believe they were very,
Weren't,
very so cheap that it was
Weren't they
unbelievable.
asking? Weren't they asking the knickers factories, like the factories that manufacture briefs and underwear, to actually make the masks? As I recall,
Well, I think they most of our masks came where they shouldn't have come from. They came from China.
lovely.
But yeah,
Well,
you are
anyway,
right. If you had a UK knicker mask or a Canadian knicker mask, you might stand a better chance because at least you can guarantee the material. But there's probably plastic in the cheap masks that, like you said, years time, it could give you lung cancer.
some kind of toxic fibrous material. I'm sure of it, and I am quite convinced that in the years to come, you're going to hear more and more stories of people falling ill with lung ailments, including lung cancer and other lung diseases related to the bloody masks that we were wearing. And the alcohol that they insisted everyone wash their bloody hands with whenever they were coming in and out of a building.
Skin cancer.
There's there's a kind of alcohol that is non-toxic when it makes contact with the skin, but unfortunately, the kind of alcohol that was in those bottles was not the non-toxic variety. So if that's entering your bloodstream, traveling through your circulatory system, through your bloodstream, what would be the long-term effects of that poisonous substance? I would assume that it would damage the liver, the kidneys, and other vital organs.
I'll repeat now. AI overview. Apparently, graphene, graphene, is the primary material used in most countries' COVID-19 face masks that triggered, during the pandemic, safety recalls by health authorities due to a potential toxicity. Now, that's actually evidenced on the internet. You just come up with that as a theory. But yeah, you're right. I think it was called biomass graphene. Added that to the nanomaterial for its antibacterial, but it sort of got them recalled because it's causing more problems it was meant to prevent. There you go.
Well, as I recall, the swab that they insisted we get to,
Stick it up your nose.
to to actually see with the swab what the PCR test would determine about our state of health, whether we were infected with COVID or not. That swab, as I recall, contained graphene.
I remember feeling very ill one day. In fact, Kirsty had come to visit. We're both coughing, sweating, high temperature. I could hardly drive to the hospital to get a test. And it never came back positive. Never. We was cleared. Next day, I think Joanne picked up whatever we had. She went to the hospital and she got positive for COVID, even though we had all the jabs because we wanted to travel. So that's all weird as well.
So did the bloody jab give you COVID? Probably.
Exactly. It certainly given me kidney cancer. I know that much. But there's a lot of people out there they've lost their loved ones and they'll never really get an answer. And I always ask people to come forward if they want to talk about their story. Because it's only about the stories that we can get a picture of what really happening out there. We can speculate, but it's the real
And you
people that
do
make the
that
evidence.
same question for the hand washing alcohol and during the COVID pandemic. What kind of alcohol was used in the alcohol dispensers?
It certainly weren't Guinness. Sorry. I'm just going to Google that, see if there's anything interesting. Here we go again. I mean, good old AI recently, they're doing some good. Because otherwise we'd have to search for all the different subjects, different companies to get a sort of an average. But AI overview seems to tell you the
Nail it.
truth. So it says numerous alcohol-based hand sanitizers during COVID-19 and wipes, don't forget the wipes, have faced international recalls due to dangerous methanol contamination.
Methanol. Thank you. Ethanol is safe. Methanol is poisonous. They put poisonous alcohol in those hand sanitizers. They're criminals, Andy. They're trying to genocide the population. This is a population reduction, population eugenics exercise, and genocide. And these criminals need to be apprehended and summarily dealt with. This is tiresome. This has gone on and on and on for years. And they keep saying these substances are safe, and they're lying to the public.
And it's
Especially the goddamn vaccines. They're not safe and they're not effective. What the hell are they still endorsing them for?
it reads on: toxic methanol can cause blindness or death if absorbed or swallowed, while bacteria issues risk severe infections. The yeah, it just beggars
Look
belief.
at Andy. I watched people soaking that stuff up. I mean, they take that hand sanitizer and just pump the goddamn thing until their hands were loaded with this shit. And then they would rub it all over not only their goddamn hands, halfway up their arms. I mean, they just bathed in this shit. They had a bloody bath in it. I mean, how the hell could you do that every time you come in and out of a building over the course of months or a year without poisoning your body? You
Do you know
couldn't
what the
possibly get
scary
away with
thing
it.
is? What the scary thing is, I mean, these masks are still used today for the vulnerable going in and out of public buildings, but even more so, the hand sanitizer is still operated in our surgeries, all our hospitals. You don't have to use it, but it's there and people do use it. Unless it's now the cheaper version, the good one now. Who knows? I mean, you can tell a bad sanitizer because it actually smells very alcoholic. You can smell it. A good one you won't really necessarily smell, apparently.
Yeah, because it's got ethanol instead of methanol. Beautiful.
That's just me being nobody. And that was easy to work out.
So, going back to your cancerous tumor in your kidney, what the hell caused that? Was it the vaccine, or was it the methanol in the alcohol, or was it a combination of both? Or was it the goddamn graphene in your mask?
It does wake up. I mean, my surgeon said straight away, he says that's a big lump there and it's been there forever. I'm not sure what sort of triggered it off now. They did say that. It was so big, it could probably have lived forever in there, but something triggered it to wake up. Had to be something COVID-19.
Yeah.
I believe that, in I do believe in doctors a lot, but bloody hell. Um, I had more faith in my surgeon though than I did my GP. My surgeon told me what I needed to know, really. Something triggered that off, otherwise it would have laid there forever.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at something you sent yesterday. But anyway, on the today's show, we did want to talk about the fact that the United States military has turned into, well, it used to be that at least America tried to posture as a kind of international police force for um, restoring peace and order in various regions of the world, and not withstanding, maintaining their interests by keeping the peace so that the supply chain couldn't be disrupted, so that the supply of oil and natural gas and other resources could be maintained. And so keeping the peace was an essential part of the foreign policy. But now they've completely morphed into a international piracy regime. And by controlling the world's choke points in terms of world sea trade, these choke points that they have gained control of are preventing very essential resources from reaching their port of call. So badly needed resources in China are not reaching China. Badly needed resources in South Korea are not reaching there. And we're not just talking about oil and gas. Do you recall what else we're talking about?
Sorry, my brain's gone dead.
Well, the silicon chips for our phones, our computers, etc., are many of these
Yeah,
devices require them, and they're manufactured in South Korea. And without the supply of resources from the Middle East reaching South Korea, even this industry is unable to manufacture these much needed technology devices for our phones, computers, etc. So obviously, Samsung, which is a huge chaebol company in Korea, is not going to be able to manufacture its phones without these much needed resources reaching South Korea. So, but because of this international piracy that's taking place, where America is basically running a protection racket on a global scale, the supply of oil from Russia reaching its customer base in China and in other locales, it's just not making it. The Strait of Malachi is one of those choke points, and the U.S. Navy is stationed there and is preventing sea traffic from navigating through this vital choke point. And so, what is happening is it's forcing the hand of all these regimes around the world. And because of their desperate need for these resources, they're forced to buy oil from the United States rather than their traditional supplier. Now we know what happened in Europe. The supply of oil that was being shipped by pipeline to Europe. Well, we know what happened to the pipeline, right, Andy?
yeah, and they're doing that with undersea cables as well, especially our internet. It's supplied under the sea, so I mean, at the moment they're saying it's our own shipping, fishing people that are cutting them, but we are being sabotaged. I mean, recently last week there's a couple of Russian warships around Orkney. Apparently, it was just they're allowed to do whatever they're allowed to do, but they're on a spying mission for sure.
Well, does it make sense to you that
It don't make sense that they're allowed.
does it make sense to you that fishing trawlers could be causing this damage to cables in this seabed?
Can't understand it in one way because you would have thought the ships underneath can only go down so far, whereas the cables must have been laid so deep that sort of scenario would never have happened. Unless, of course, the only other thing, they had nets that were thrown right to the bottom of the seabed, but that also don't make sense because the seabed surely is a long, long way down. So it's something fishy going on. Fishy being the word.
Yeah, it just sounds like a cover story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the synagogue of Satan, Team Antichrist, is on something of a roll these days, Andy. For over 200 years, it succeeded in most endeavors to which it aimed. And over the past 80 years, it certainly got far more um, done in terms of its agenda than not done. But things are picking up and it's getting worse. Okay, so the synagogue of Satan, Team Antichrist, can boast that the following 10 things were great successes orchestrated over the last century, the 20th century. The Christian Holocaust, orchestrated, financed, and covered up by Team Antichrist, which genocided 65 million white Christians in World War I and 85 million white Christians in World War II. Total for the two genocides, 150 million and two world wars. The Napoleonic Wars served to indebt most of the advanced nations of Europe and to test and validate the bankster model by which whole nations could be enslaved by financing both sides in the conflicts. Now, this business of financing both sides, the Knights Templar started that. And sorry to say, but where did this entity come from? The Knights Templar were a military knighthood organization of the Roman Church, right? And they founded the banking industry as it still functions with the fractional reserve lending scheme, where a bank can lend 10 times what it actually has on reserve. Well, the Knights would lend gold to kings to fund the military campaigns, including those in the Crusades, in the Holy Wars.